Without further ado, I will turn things over to the Green Party of New York nominees for governor and lieutenant governor, Howie Hawkins and Gloria Mattera.
Well, thank you, Michael. Yeah, we're here to officially announce that we're running. We've been out petitioning since last Tuesday when the petitioning period started. And Gloria and I were the ticket in 2010 when the Green Party got its ballot line back. And we lost it in 2020. We intend to get it back in 2022. Just briefly about me, I'm a retired Teamster in Syracuse, New York. And this is my fourth time running for governor. Each time we got the ballot line, and we intend to do it again. And we're going to speak briefly and leave most of the time for questions and answers. But I want to hit on one central theme of this campaign, which is democracy, or what we're calling an inclusive democracy. And of course, that means we're campaigning to restore a reasonable ballot access law in New York State. And specifically, we're saying, let's go back to the pre-2020 standard. The election law changes in 2020 basically tripled the signatures we need, tripled the votes we need to maintain a ballot line, and doubled the frequency from every 4 years to every 2 years. So it's really the hardest comparable petition that we've been able to find anywhere in the nation or actually in the world. And there's documentation of that, an op-ed that's on our website if you want to see how it compares to other states and nations. So in 2020, the Green Party and every party that didn't cross-endorse a major party candidate lost their ballot line in New York State. So we want fair ballot access, but we think it's time to campaign against the exclusionary nature of the single-member district winner-take-all system. So we're calling for ranked choice voting for executive offices and proportional representation in the state legislature. The existing system excludes political minorities, not just people who support the Green Party, but if you're the supporter of a major party that's a minority party in a legislative district, you don't get representation either. And with proportional representation, every political viewpoint gets its fair share of representation that's proportional to its voting support. Every vote counts toward that proportional share, so everybody has a reason to vote instead of these non-competitive one-party districts. And it also will render gerrymandering impossible. So proportional representation is a way to end gerrymandering, which is a big issue now in New York. So with that, I want to introduce Gloria Mattera. When we ran in 2010, we were the first two candidates in this country to campaign for a Green New Deal. And Gloria has been a longtime leader in the movement for Medicare for All, and specifically the New York Health Act. She's a co-chair of the Green Party of New York and was until recently a national co-chair of the Green Party. She's a lifelong resident of Brooklyn. She started her professional career teaching special needs preschoolers and now works with poor immigrant children and families in the public hospital system. So Gloria, the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you, Howie. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. Just want to make some brief comments. As Howie said, we're renewing our call, our longstanding call for a Green New Deal, and both to address the climate crisis and economic insecurity. We're really promoting a much stronger state climate action program. We want to achieve 100% clean renewable energy and zero emissions within 10 years, along with an economic bill of rights. And that really includes universal single payer healthcare, guaranteed minimum income, $20 minimum wage, affordable housing, and tuition-free public education from childcare and pre-K all the way through college and technical schools. And we're calling it the eco-socialist Green New Deal because we really have to distinguish what's become the watered-down Green New Deal that some progressive Democrats, have proposed. They took our slogan and watered that down, not looking at the need to ban new fossil fuel infrastructure, moving the deadline to zero emissions past 2030. And so we want to continue to emphasize that the Green New Deal, the eco-socialist Green New Deal that Howie and I will be talking about, that the Green Party of New York has been supporting, is really looking at the public sector programs, public enterprise and democratic planning, not public-private partnerships, not giving corporate welfare programs and tax breaks and subsidies for corporations and companies that will say they're going to tweak what they're doing to make some little bit of a difference in terms of the climate crisis, which is particularly serious at the moment. Also, I want to say a word about the New York Health Act. As a public health worker for several decades, especially going through the past couple of years with COVID, it's really clear that the public hospital system, the public health system needs shoring up. It needs to be the place where most people are getting their health care, both preventative health care and hospitalizations, other wellness programs. You know, the Democrats said that they would pass the New York Health Act when they had a majority, which I think, they had that in 2018, and they've not been able to do that. And so that will be another signature of our campaign, which is pushing for the New York Health Act as a way to move towards health justice, providing affordable, equitable, and high quality healthcare services to everyone in New York State. So Howie, I want to turn it back to you.
We'll go to question and answer here in a second. And I just wanted to put one more issue on the table that has been neglected by the two major parties, and that's the issue of poverty. I live in Syracuse. The census data shows that we are #1 in child poverty and family poverty. Rochester's #2. Buffalo's #6 among the nation's cities of over 100,000. It's a huge issue upstate, but there were no anti-poverty initiatives in the state budget. In fact, they rejected what initiatives were proposed: the Housing Access Voucher Program and replenishment of the Excluded Workers Fund. So among the things we're calling for is a guaranteed minimum income built into the progressive income tax structure. If your income is below poverty, you will get a monthly income to bring you up above the poverty line. And this is a program that Martin Luther King, called for as part of the Economic Bill of Rights that the 1968 Poor People's Campaign was about, and it would end poverty. And we support other social protections like expanding public housing until everyone has an affordable housing option. And we also believe, and this brings up another issue, the crime issue, which is big this term, ending poverty is the most effective way to reduce street crime. So with that, let's go to questions and answers.
This is Bill Mahoney with Politico. Can you hear me okay?
We sure can, Bill. Thanks. Go ahead.
So what can you do differently? What's changed since 2020, the presidential election that year, that can help you hit the ballot threshold and get you back established as an official party for the next 2 years, at least in New York? Is there a path that's different now than there was in the presidential election to getting the 135,000 votes?
Yeah, I think it's going to be more like 150,000. In 2020, it was 173,000 because the new standard is 130,000 or 2%, whichever is greater. Yeah, Trump's not on the ballot. That was a tough year. I was the Green Party candidate for president, and most progressive-minded people, they were going to vote for Biden even if they didn't like him, just to get Trump out of there. I think we have a different dynamic this year. We have a centrist corporate Democrat and a far-right Republican in all likelihood, which leaves a lot of space on the political left. And we hope to appeal to those people and get what'll probably be at least 150,000 votes to secure a ballot line. But we think that's our path.
Yeah, just to particularly say, I think the Democrats have, once again shown that they don't deliver. And, the corruption most recently about Brian Benjamin, I think, really speaks to people being disgusted by that and wanting their alternatives. We know that poll after poll shows that people would like other parties. And I think even just talking to people this past week, as we're out petitioning, hearing that the Green Party is not on the ballot and the reasons why, we're hoping will be other ways of capitalizing on, getting a vote for an alternative party that presents a different alternative agenda. So thank you, Bill.
Okay. And so this is your fourth run for governor, correct?
For me, yes.
And how many, do you have the number for the total number of campaigns you've launched at this point for up and down the ballot?
It's about 25.
Okay.
I know the New York Times did a profile, and that was the big thing they wanted to find out, but it's about 25.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Any other questions? I see that Dan Clark is just unmuted. Dan?
Hey, Howie and Gloria. Can you both hear me?
We sure
Hi,
can.
Dan.
Hi. So I imagine there are people that will be going to the ballot box in November, and if you make it onto the ballot, they'll see your names, and then they'll see the Democrat, the Republican, and anybody else that makes it on. How do you convince those people to vote for you instead of maybe one of the major party candidates, for people who may be concerned that voting for you may be like a spoiler for the Democrat or the Republican to make one of them lose?
Well, the Democrats are the ones that usually raise that question, and there's a solution that they can do between now and November, and that is pass a law to have ranked choice voting for all statewide offices. Then if people are worried about the Republican who would like to vote for us, but think they might have to vote for the, and settle for the Democrat to stop the Republican, they can rank us first and Hochul second. If she's the nominee, she probably will be, and not worry about it might help the Republican. So there's a solution to that. And of course, if we're not running and posing these issues, it's not even going to be discussed.
Thank you.
Gloria, did you have anything to add?
I would just add, I appreciate the question and people who express their concern. And obviously, the more people we can touch directly to talk about this, both in talking about how elections can be changed here in New York, and hopefully having some media coverage to be able to get that word out, as we have different kinds of resources than the two corporate parties. But this system has been rotten, and it continues. Both mostly by the Democrats who have been controlling the state for a long time. So to be able to take smaller parties and independent candidates and continue to put up obstacles, I don't think that's what the voting public really wants. And so I think that we will continue to talk about voting democracy, for voter rights, which is voter suppression by throwing us off the ballot with those arcane laws, in addition to the new laws. And so I think that our message will resonate. And I think people will feel that voting for an alternative and showing a strong Green Party vote, because we know that there are obstacles both for the petitioning period and for gathering the amount of votes we need to sustain our ballot line. But I think that people will be feeling that it's a strong vote for a Green Party ticket, will be a strong message to the New York State Legislature and who's ever elected.
Great. I see that Michael Gormley has unmuted. Michael, you're up next. If you
Thank
just
you.
let us know who you're reporting with today.
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to ask the candidates if could, and I apologize, I came in a little late. I was on another assignment. A poll out today, the Siena poll about the governor and state politics, seems to show a continued dissatisfaction with politics as usual. Is that something that you guys are seeing and hearing on the campaign trail? And is that part of what you think will draw more voters to you?
Yeah, I would say that, a lot of people, when I, am out there petitioning, my pitch is, can you help us with a signature to put the Green Party back on the ballot? And most people are shocked. I thought you were on the ballot. What happened? And then when they hear what happened, that they tripled the standards, basically, they're pretty outraged. And a lot of people say, yeah, we need alternatives. And we know from an exit poll in 2016 that 61% of Jill Stein, our presidential candidate's voters would not have voted if she wasn't on the ballot. So we bring new voters out. I think, there's a lot of dismay. People had hopes the Democrats would do some things at the federal level and at the state level, and they haven't, particularly on the democracy issue. Voting rights and these state laws the Republicans are passing to take over the vote counting and steal elections. People are pretty demoralized about that. So we're trying to not only fight for that, but fight for a multi-party inclusive democracy where everybody's vote counts.
Yeah, I have nothing to add. I think Howie's made the points. Thank you for being here, Mike. See you again. It's what I'm hearing from our Brooklyn base of petitioners is that people are very, very willing to sign. So I think that message of getting the Green Party back on the ballot is a good one.
Hi, this is Bill again. Sorry, one additional question. You were mentioning the possibility of proportional representation in Albany. are there any American models that would make sense to follow if we're talking about this?
Yeah, we don't have it at the state level, but we've had it in this country in about 30 municipalities out of the progressive era. A lot of cities elected their city council that way, including New York City from 1937 till 1946. And when they had that, they got the first Black elected city councilor who was elected on the American Labor Party, a third party. That was, what's his name in Harlem? I'm blanking on his name. Adam Clayton Powell. They elected the first woman. So that opened up the political system. And they had about 5 parties represented in the 10 years when they had proportional representation. There's been a new wave of ranked choice voting, but in several cities, ethnic minorities that have been excluded, in one case it was a civil rights suit, and the other 2 it was threatened. And so what that did was include, they went to proportional representation in Grosse Pointe, Michigan, where African Americans were excluded, Desert Palm, California, where Latinos were excluded, and Albany, California, where Asians have been excluded. So we've got movement on that, and we're going to try to move it up to the state level with this campaign.
Would we need a constitutional amendment to do this at the state level, at least the proportional representation portion?
Yes, that's the harder bill than ranked choice voting, because there's a section in the Constitution that says Senate districts are supposed to be single member district. So we need a constitutional amendment to go along with the legislation.
Thank you.
Mark Dunley?
Yes, I was just curious, you guys have a position on the proposal to give $500 million or so to a Buffalo Bills stadium?
It's scandalous. The connection with, Hochul's husband, the amount for, a private enterprise like that, when we need funding for so many other things, around climate, around economic insecurity, around affordable public housing. What other position can anyone take, even I'm sure the voters, when they hear about it, is that, this is just a sweetheart deal. Reminds me a lot of the battle I was in years ago around the Atlantic Yards with Bruce Ratner and the use of eminent domain, the use of funding and tax breaks to be able to put forward a private enterprise. And it's just it's a scandal that I think we will talk about, and I'm sure that voters will be very responsive to that. Howie?
Yeah, this is the second Buffalo billion, and we know how the first one worked out. And as a general rule, if the public is going to put money into these enterprises, instead of just giving them a tax break or a subsidy or a loan guarantee, why don't we take an equity position so we have a say, like the other investors do in the investment? In Buffalo, we could have a share of public ownership and anchor it to Buffalo, like the Green Bay Packers are anchored to Green Bay, a small city. And the only reason that is the case is because in that case, you can't have voting stock in the Green Bay Packers unless you live in Green Bay. So it's an example of community ownership. So, maybe we can debate that, but what they're proposing is just a giveaway to a guy that has $6 billion he earned in the fracking industry. And that just has, it's scandalous, as Gloria said.
I see Mark has another question. Go ahead, Mark Dunley.
I noticed over the weekend that the Working Families Party, we know that they always end up endorsing the Democrat candidate for, statewide office. But this year, very, very early on, they've already thrown in the towel and said that they're going to endorse whoever wins the Democratic nomination for governor. And I know there's a lot of competition among progressives saying, well, the Working Families Party is an example of how you can work, for a third party. Do you have any feelings about the fact that the Working Families Party has already made clear that they are just going to align with the Democrats, at least with the statewide elections?
Yeah, they already gave away their leverage. They don't threaten to take votes away from Hochul. So She doesn't have to listen to them. The thing we do is, we make the Democrats compete for our votes. We got 5% in 2014, in a year when Andrew Cuomo wanted to run up the vote, get more than his father, Mario Cuomo, ever got, more than he got in 2010, and he got less. And as a result, he had to compete for our votes. And he adopted positions he had never supported before that election. The ban on fracking, the $15 minimum wage, paid family leave. These were things we were campaigning for. So, by making the Democrats compete for our vote, we have leverage. The Working Families Party just, gave it away. Particularly, this goes back to the spoiler question. I mean, the Democrats have a 2-to-1 enrollment advantage in New York State. If they lose this election, it's not on us, it's on them, because they have such an advantage.
I wouldn't call the Working Families Party an independent or alternative party. I think they're continuing to do what they do, and that's fine for us. We can make that point that we are the independent party with a different voice, different kinds of candidates supporting other issues.
Gloria and/or Howie, did you have any final thoughts to share?
Well, I would just say thank you for coming out. We're going to spend the next 5 weeks petitioning. We've been out there for a week. That's actually probably the harder standard for ballot access than getting the vote. I mean, 45,000 in 42 days. And this is on our website in that op-ed I mentioned, but the closest petition we can find is in Putin's Russia for the top position from their equivalent of states, oblasts, which is to run for the State Duma as an independent. Their standard is 15,000 signatures in 45 days, which is close to the old standard of New York of 15,000 in 42 days. So we've been shopping around a bill. There's a memo about that also on our website to legislators and, particularly Democrats. And, I joke that we just want to go back to the Putin standard. And they laugh and they say, you're right. But so far they're saying, we don't want to cross the governor, not this year, which is, why we need the Green Party to bring forward alternatives that the Democrats are not willing to do.
I'd also like to thank all of you for taking the time to come here and talk with us. We're always available for questions past this. And just, keep an eye out for the next 5 weeks. We are really working hard around the state. We have a great group of volunteers, and we're also continuing to increase our resources to have petitioners. We intend to be on the ballot. We know it's a challenge. We're up for that. Once Cuomo stole our ballot line, there was no way any Green Party member in New York State and our supporters were just going to let that happen. So we intend to be on the ballot in November.